Hello, friends. Welcome. We are talking about hybrid closed loop pumps in this presentation here. Just a quick overview of what are they? What are the advantages, disadvantages, and what is currently on the market? What is a hybrid closed loop pump? It is a type of medical device that uses pump, the CGM, and a fancy algorithm. And basically, it automates the delivery of insulin based on those real time blood sugar readings that are taken from the continuous glucose monitor. In the past, the pumps did not communicate with CGMs. We could use them together, but you had to manually make adjustments, whereas now the pumps and the CGM work together. All hybrid closed loop pumps consist of three different parts. We got the continuous glucose monitor sensor that is inserted under the skin and measures those glucose levels in the interstitial fluid. Usually, this is every 5 minutes or so, and it provides the pump and the algorithm with real time data and trends. The heart of the hybrid closed loop system is, of course, a little computer algorithm that processes the CGM data. And this algorithm can predict what future blood sugar levels will be based on the trends and patterns that it is seeing. An insulin pump is, of course, the last part of this and is connected to the system. Instead of manually programming those doses, the pump receives instructions from the algorithm on how much insulin to deliver. And that being said, you do also, there is some manual bolusing still for these pumps, generally with some like corrections as well as mealtime boluses, although we are seeing some improvements where you may not have to announce your meals as often. The algorithm determines the appropriate insulin delivery rate to keep blood sugars level within a target range. It can automatically adjust the basal or your background insulin rates and administer boluses, correction boluses, and occasionally that mealtime bolus as needed. While the system is automated, the user provides certain inputs like your insulin to carb ratio or your insulin sensitivity factor, your total daily dose, and this helps the algorithm make more accurate predictions. So it is taking information that it observes as well as what you input. And hybrid closed loop systems have safety features that really help to prevent hypoglycemia or excessive insulin delivery. It is very hard for these pumps to go after you, even with CGM inaccuracy or noise or something like that. The the algorithms, in order to get approved through the FDA, they really have to prove that they're safe and do not cause excessive hypoglycemia. They often include options for users to adjust settings or suspend insulin delivery temporarily, turn off the algorithm. Again, lots of safety features implemented. Some of the advantages of using a hybrid closed loop pump are, of course, improved blood sugars. In clinical trials comparing hybrid closed loop therapy to traditional therapy, we typically see an improvement across the board in time and range and A1C. Doesn't mean that you can't have in target numbers using other methods, but the hybrid closed loop pumps really allow for management in ways that we can't practically achieve as humans. So an example of that would be overnight. You're not looking and predicting and making adjustments overnight, but the hybrid closed loop pump can help you with that. And that amount of time that you are sleeping is pretty significant. That's, 8 to 10 hours of your day and that you wouldn't normally be managing that is now being monitored and managed for you. So that's really cool. Number 2, enhanced quality of life. And I think this is debatable as some people have some pretty strong opinions on this. But generally speaking, if you are trained on the pump appropriately, you are going to have some improved quality of life due to the decreased burden of care. So, less injections, less button pushing, and just less mental burden of making decisions so often. This really also helps people with comorbidities, especially in the psychological realm, like attention deficit or anxiety and depression, or things that sometimes just get in the way of all of that decision making. It is really a improvement in quality of life to have something that can kind of help you out. Third advantage is reduced hypoglycemia. This is really the biggest perk. Hands down, the pumps are going to reduce hypos significantly, more so than anything that anybody can do on their own manually. They are able to sense a drop in blood sugar, which, unless you are watching your trends constantly and noting, like, oh, it's going down by 3, 4, 6. Should I maybe suspend my pump? How much do I suspend my? You just can't do that as a human normally, unless you're a math genius of some sort. And the algorithm can do that. So it's able to catch and prevent lows so much more efficiently and way better. So time below range is going to decrease significantly. And this is awesome. Again, especially for overnight when we often have a lot of anxiety about what's going on. It really will help a lot with making sure that those lows don't happen. And of course, flexibility. So it lets you be a bit more flexible. It's more forgiving if you forget to pre-bolus or to bolus entirely. It can, you'll still have a rise, but like it helps to make sure that rise is not as significant. And again, these pumps and some of the open source systems actually don't even require that you announce your meals. So it really can help a lot with the flexibility, going out to eat, or possibly changing your schedule or sleeping in longer. Lots of perks here for flexibility. Disadvantages: compatibility. So you have to use Dexcom at this point in time. You have to use the Dexcom G6. I know we are getting to the G7, but right now this is what you get. If you like the algorithm of the Omnipod 5, but you want a tubed pump, then unfortunately you can't have it. So you have to use the algorithm associated with that type of pump. So it really does sort of limit your options a little bit here if you have a favorite type of CGM or pump that you want to use. Second disadvantage: very steep learning curve. Going from multiple daily injections or from traditional pump therapy to a hybrid closed loop is going to present a pretty significant learning curve, as you have to start understanding the algorithm and the settings that can be adjusted, which is what we're going to learn in this course. They're all different, and there's a little bit of a mindset set change as well, especially if you are someone who's really got some control issues. Like, you kind of have to relinquish a little bit of that control when you are starting on a hybrid closed loop pump, and just trust that it is doing its best for you, and not panicking. And that can be really difficult. So it takes some practice. Third, less tight management. And of course, this is very subjective, but I know it's important to note because a lot of people get really upset seeing that their A1C is going to be hanging out in the 6.5, a little bit lower, a little bit higher, because that's generally what these pumps are aiming for. They're not trying to get you down to 5.5 because it just puts you more at risk for lots of hypos. So they just don't do that. Um, and so that can be upsetting for people. So if you were somebody that really hangs a lot of their desires on that 5.5 A1C, then this is not going to work out for you. 6.5 to 7, though, is still at goal, and it is still great management. And the target range gives you all the protection and prevention you need from complications. So it makes no difference if your A1C is above a 6.5 versus a 5.5, you still have the same benefit and chances of prevention from future complications. Something to note. And the last one here, of course, is something I always have to mention, but cost and accessibility. Generally, these are not more expensive than traditional pump therapy. So if you're going from regular Medtronic to Tandem Control IQ or something like that, your costs are going to be pretty similar. But if you're somebody that's going from MDI, or maybe you live somewhere where you don't have access to some of these insulin pumps and sensors and things like that, it's gonna definitely be a lot more expensive. So that's unfortunate. And hopefully, I think we're going to see this is just now the standard with insulin pumps and everything. So hopefully, it will help a little bit with accessibility down the road. Let's go over what's available, of course. What is on the market? Medtronic was the first company to implement the hybrid closed loop algorithm with their 670G, and they have since come out with two other iterations, which is the 770G, and then the 780G is very new, and I don't even, I think it's just getting pushed out to some early users. Tandem was second, and it is a very popular tubed option. Omnipod 5 is one of the latest to upgrade their pump to the hybrid closed loop algorithm, and it is still only the only tubeless option on the market at this point in time. Notable other options are, of course, I have to mention, although we will not go super in depth with them because one is not FDA approved and the other is very, very new. But automated, the open source automated insulin delivery systems, these are non-FDA approved and created by users across the world in the diabetes online space. Very, very cool. If you have not heard of it, I would look it up because it's just a fun vibe. Is my best way to describe it. But the perk with this, of course, is that there's a very fast release of features because they don't have to go through the FDA. So new features are coming out very regularly. There's a lot more personalization involved. So if you are somebody that really desires that quote unquote tighter management, then the open source AID systems are, with some risk, but they allow you to do a little bit more of that. Again, because they are not FDA approved. This is both a pro and a con, but it also adds a little bit of cost as well. So you have to access older pumps, which sometimes can be a pain, and you have to pay out of pocket for those typically. You also, it may be difficult to get those supplies because you are maybe using a pump that is not on your plan or something like that. And you kind of have to like sneak around insurance, and it's a whole thing. So while their goal was accessibility and affordability to hybrid closed loop systems, at this point in time, because there's so many commercial versions of HCL pumps, I wouldn't really say accessibility is the pro in the open source AID systems for that reason, unfortunately. But it is what I use, it is what I love, and it's at least a very cool movement that I think everybody should know about. Beta Bionic iLet is the newest hybrid closed loop pump on the market. I'm excited about it, but it is not widely used yet. I've had like one client that at my last practice was using it, and unfortunately the pump came after I left, so I didn't get to see it. But it has some really great features, and it's something I would definitely love to see more of and recommend to a lot of my clients. Instead of using traditional carb counting, it's going to use my favorite version of carb counting, which is small meal, regular meal, or large meal. And it basically, that way, again, taking a bit of this mental burden down, as well as for people maybe that have some disordered eating patterns, or for kids and teens. This is Phenomenal. I love it. So you really are just you're looking at your meal and you're like, this is a little bit more carb heavy than I would normally have, and you just let the pump know that, and it adjusts as needed, which is really cool. And that's how pumps should be working all the time. But I digress. All right, so that's the end of this overview. Go ahead and move on to the next couple of videos, whether you want to learn about the other pumps or just listen specifically for your type of pump. But I'll see you there.